Congressman Clay Higgins is a member of the House Homeland Security Committee and Oversight Accountability Committee. He joins us live. Congressman, thank you so much for coming on. We do appreciate that. You see video like this in Border Patrol doing what they can to gain control of this situation. What were your thoughts when you see a scene like this play out over the weekend?
Well, the frontline Border Patrol agents, you're exactly right. They're doing what they can, but they're working within the parameters of the restrictions of their chain of command coming from Biden and Mayorkas, which have been forcing them to operate essentially partnerships with the drug cartels that traffic human beings and drugs. So when you have wave after wave, day after day, thousands and thousands and thousands of illegal immigrants crossing into America between the ports of entry, and you have a port of entry like this that's doing its best to handle legal commerce and legal trafficking, essentially the entire border becomes porous and weak. And at any point along that border, including, as the videos show and what happened this weekend shows, including at the ports of entry. This is all reflective of what happens when our executive branch turns over control of our southern border to the cartels. So Mayorkas is responsible for this, and Biden is responsible for this.
When you see things like this, does that call for a committee hearing to discuss how this is being handled, the influx in migrants and how they're dealing with CBP agents?
Well, yes, sir. Between the Homeland Security Committee, my own committee, where I chair the Border Security Subcommittee there, and the Oversight Committee, where we have very broad authority, and the Judiciary Committee, where we have scores of hearings scheduled and deep investigations regarding exactly what's going on at our southern border and what we need to do to fix it. So we're going to gradually reveal over the course of this year exactly what's been happening at our southern border and precisely how Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden will be held to account.
All right. I want to move on if I can. You bring up President Biden. He made news this morning, roughly just about 2 hours ago. Maybe you've seen it, but over the weekend, there were two major banks that collapsed, Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank here in New York. President Biden rolling out steps to deal with the crisis a few hours ago, essentially bringing in the Fed, the FDIC, the Treasury Department, saying that all depositors that are dealing with these banks, they are covered even above the FDIC $250,000 insurance threshold. Well past that, you'll be able to withdraw money, small businesses, et cetera, that deal. Investors, not so much. They're out money, but again, depositors, they would be fine. But again, the big sticking point of the government, again, going past that $250,000 limit, taking it, throwing out the window. I'm curious to know of your thoughts on that, because many point to inflation rates, the Fed rate, interest rate hikes towards why these two banks collapsed and the possibility of even more banks collapsing. Your thoughts on that?
Okay, you asked two significant questions, sir. One regarding why this happened. Let me just show briefly this graph your viewers can see. This begins in 2008. These are losses of investment securities. And this is what happens when Biden took office. These high years as Trump was in office, they had beautiful conservative economic policies, including the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act had kicked in, and then extreme losses when Biden was sworn into office and his policies began to take effect. A massive inflation impact and rapid, repetitive raising of interest rates by the Fed to try and counteract the inflation that was caused by Biden policy to begin with. So some banks in America that operate on the edge and have a large number of their depositors are wealthy and carry amounts in their account above the $250,000 threshold. When you have 80-90% of your accounts in your bank are or well over $250,000, and that money is spread into investments, and you have massive investment loss 4 quarters in a row, the entirety of last year, and looking at another significant quarter of loss in the first quarter of this year, all because of Biden administration policies, then things are going to happen. You understand? There's going to be runs on banks. The wealthy are going to attempt to protect their wealth. They're going to move this stuff, their investments into other currencies and other banks. And the federal government is going to have to take action. Now, that being said, let me just say that I think it's being handled pretty well. And the situation that resulted from Biden policy to begin with never should have happened, with our banks, of some banks threatening to fail. But the various executive authorities and Congress has responded very quickly, worked through the weekend, and you have some safety mechanisms in place that are going to prevent further failure. You'll see a couple more banks in the news. And as far as the investments above $250,000, I don't necessarily support that, but I think it's too early to criticize it.
Okay.
Let's see what happens this week.
Fair enough. Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana joining us live. Congressman, always great to see you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.